John H. Nelson was an electrical engineer working for Radio Corporation of America in the 1950s. As part of his research, he built a rooftop observatory in Manhattan for making astronomical observations. He wanted to see if there was some correlation between shortwave radio propagation conditions on Earth and solar conditions. The aim was to find a way to improve signal broadcast quality. What he found was rather startling. After making many observations, he discovered that when certain angles between planets occur, they seem to correspond with significantly reduced radio wave propagation across the Earth. What is incredibly fascinating is that the planetary angles which cause this effect, 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, known as conjunct, square, and opposition, have been studied for thousands of years by astronomers and have been found to cause warfare, revolutions, economic collapse, and new kingdoms to appear. These are known as the hard aspects. A mechanism for this may be that the Sun is highly affected by these hard planetary aspects and shuts down some of its ultraviolet light energy propagation. This would result in a shortening of the growing season and crop failure. More expensive primary products like grain would slow down economies and collapse others. It was William Herschel in 1801 who reported the correlation between sunspots and commodity prices. More sunspots result in reduced prices and a greater abundance of healthier plants, and vice versa. In bad years, an entire wine crop might be spoiled. Food fails to develop on the vine, or dies of frost, and famine results. This is more than enough to bring down many a nation's economy. All economies are built from the bottom up, so a fundamental change in agriculture can have wide-ranging effects upon stock markets. In Nelson's case, a stronger solar field in the absence of right-angle hard aspects seemed to enhance shortwave signal quality. This might be because the solar wind helped to create a more energized and therefore reflective magnetosphere for signals to bounce off from. There are many potential explanations. Nelson found that the best conditions occurred under trine, or planets staggered at 120 degrees. This is called a soft aspect. This is just the scenario which ancient astrologers, and even some more recent notables, including Tycho Brahe and Johannes Kepler, advocated as facilitating good conditions on Earth. Nelson published his work in the journal Electrical Engineering, and there is a link section below for anyone who would like to read it. Is it a coincidence that Nelson's work seems to support the teachings of the ancients, which were based upon observation and deduction? Did Nelson imagine his findings? There has been much research done in the area, but I came across a website containing an article by David Dalton, who appears to have utilized Nelson's prediction approach, which Nelson himself claimed was between 85 and 90% accurate for predicting signal propagation quality. The results appear to support Nelson's findings, and a link is provided below. Nelson himself did not advance any particular theory to explain his observation. He had no agenda to push and did not fancy himself an astrologer. Nevertheless, his work seems to support in principle the fact that what were once known as hard planetary aspects have a tangible effect upon what the Sun does to the Earth. His observations support the idea that changing planetary angles have a strong effect upon the Sun. Hello everyone, and welcome to my office. Now, in this video, we are going to talk about how the ancients understood what is happening today. And when I say today, I mean right now. I mean the weird things that we are seeing happening around the world, the catastrophes and the disasters, and we're going to start seeing some political changes and revolutions soon as well. Charlie, what are you on about? What I'm on about is this. For tens of thousands of years, people have been doing observations of phenomena around the world. There was nothing else to do, no TV to watch. You could do the gardening or you could watch the stars. Now, people did observations, and in the 20th century, everyone threw that away, saying that's superstition. It's not superstition, it's ancient science. It's to do with the electric universe. We're going to talk about that, and I'm going to explain in this video exactly what's going on, why it's happening, and some of the particulars of this and how you can do your own forecasts even. Now, what am I talking about? Chucky, you've gone off the deep end. What are you on about? Well, this is an ancient history channel, so we're talking about how ancients interpreted what was happening. You might have noticed that as soon as 2020 ticked over, everything was great. New Year's was wonderful. 2020 ticked over, boom. What's going on? Here in Australia, we had bushfires. I couldn't go outside without a mask because it was smoky. In Africa, we're reading about locusts. There's plague after disaster happening to the planet at the moment. What's going on? It seems to me the sun has changed. It's no longer disinfecting the planet as well as it used to. But why? Why would this be? Well, the ancients seem to have known something about this, and I've originated a theory which I'm putting forward the first time here. It's linking mundane astrology, that is scientific astrology, with electric universe. That's right. I started doing extensive research into this around 2008. For almost a year, I was researching how alignments affect the share market. I was hoping to maybe make some money out of the share market that way. So what I found was quite startling, quite interesting. A bloke called John Nelson, we'll be doing a video about him coming up. He actually found that shortwave radio wave propagation is affected by planetary alignments. There are hard planetary alignments and there are soft planetary alignments. The hard planetary alignments are what we have to watch out for. And one of them is happening right now, and it's a big one. And you'll be saying, Charlie, the planets have nothing to do with what is happening on the Earth today. I know, because someone told me, and furthermore, I read it on Wikipedia, and furthermore, we never learned any of this at school, and our teachers were the best, I tell you. No. The best teachers are the ancestors, because they spent their lives doing the research and we've been alive for 5 minutes. Right, so in 1981, a bloke, I believe it was 81, a bloke called John Gribben wrote a book called The Jupiter Effect. He predicted massive tidal waves and destruction of California and earthquakes based on a perturbation in the solar orbit. What is a solar orbit? Chucky, what are you talking about? Now, I've done extensive research into this. The sun orbits around the solar system's centre of mass, which, believe it or not, lies outside the sun. So the sun is actually orbiting in a circle. Now, this orbit is actually extended if all the planets are on one side of the sun and the orbit changes. And this is kind of what this bloke was getting at. Now, the catastrophe didn't quite happen. He thought a planetary alignment, it's called a grand alignment, would occur, and this would cause great catastrophes in California. He wrote a follow-up, Jupiter Effect Revisited, that the next earthquake, why it didn't happen. But it's not just this. He was thinking in terms of gravity. He said by gravity alone, astrology can affect the sun, which can therefore affect the earth, because it perturbs the sun. It perturbs what's happening inside the sun. Now, about a week ago, I took the telescope outside for the first time in years. And as it got dark, I started to notice something extremely unusual. There was Venus, but my mum and my bro, they wanted to see more planets. And I said, sure, we'll look at the other planets. Where are they? There were no other planets. All the planets are bunched up on one side of the sun. And that particular part of the spin, we were on the wrong side. Now, if you look up websites today, they'll say, hey, look at that. You can look at all the planets. They're all in the one place. Beautiful. Now, this doesn't always cause catastrophes on Earth, but I put it to you that
catastrophes on Earth are pretty much always associated with alignments like this. It's called a hard aspect. Hard aspects, 0 degrees, 180 degrees, 90 degrees, planets in these configurations to one another. The soft aspects are more like 60 degrees, associated with good times. I have done extensive research and I've found that hard times, hard share market times, also times of low harvest and low sunspot, are associated with more of these hard aspects, and more soft aspects are usually favourable. Sometimes there is a delay of a year or two before the catastrophes kick in after the hard aspects occur, which shows that the hard aspects reconfigure something inside the sun. Now, this bloke and others, he did lots of physics into this, and based on physics alone, gravity, it's been shown that this so-called mundane astrology works. The planets really do have an effect on the sun and on solar flares, on sunspots. He called it the Jupiter effect because he said, well, the sunspots seem to recur every 11 years, just like the orbit of Jupiter, and that's going to be magnified. It's like putting a magnifying glass on it with gravity when you put all the other planets up with Jupiter, and they're all in one part of the sky in an alignment. Now, I've furthered this, and I've actually, I started writing a book in 2008. I'm going to call it The Electric Sun. Still haven't finished because I was writing my other books. I'm writing another one coming up. It's going to be called Proof of the Gods, Absolute Proof of the Ancient Civilization. But in the electric cable to the sun, I'm suggesting basically that since voltage is everywhere, we see it in the atmosphere between the Earth and the stratosphere, it's 300,000 volts, top of the stratosphere. We must see this between the Earth, between the sun and the heliopause, the edge of the solar system, the theoretical edge of the solar system. And that is a kind of bubble which is interacting with Birkeland currents coming in. I believe, and we've proven this with our little crystal ball experiments, with the plasma ball, that when you line things up, you get a connection. When the planets are lined up, you would have more of a connection and a disconnection between this interstellar Birkeland current and our sun. Our sun would therefore behave very differently. Sunspots might appear or they might vanish for a prolonged period of time. If the sunspots vanish, I believe the sun is no longer disinfecting the Earth properly, and hence we have all these weird, creepy, crawly, pathogenic organisms around. That could be a cause of what's going on now. Sun, as we know, can cause earthquakes. Solar flares are associated with earthquakes. I discovered that periods of low sunspot activity, and in fact this is common knowledge, I didn't discover it, I read it, that periods of low sunspot activity can be associated with the largest earthquakes, but even if the earthquakes are very rare. Fukushima was built in a time of rare earthquakes, except for the Mexico earthquake in 1960, and it was assumed that earthquakes would never hit Japan. Now, as the sun has altered, earthquakes are increasing in frequency, and I believe the sun, in conjunction with the internal sun, they're acting as a kind of duo and acting in conjunction with one another. I think that is what is happening. I think as the aspects alter, the electromagnetic energy of the Earth is changing, because the electromagnetic energy the sun is receiving is changing as well, because it's acting in relation to everything in the universe. It's not isolated from the universe, and the sun is not isolated from the planets, as the experts on Wikipedia claim. Mundane astrology is the name of this particular science. It's very similar to long-range weather forecasting. We had excellent long-range weather forecasters here in Australia. They get very little media attention. They've been able to predict weather 2 decades in advance. With long-range weather forecasting, you can predict the weather 1,000 years in advance, 10,000 years in advance. It doesn't particularly matter. Of course, the ice ages will come and go, but apart from that, you're going to know if it's going to be raining or it's going to be a clear sky. That's how good this science is. And it's based on the moon, it's based on the sun. Now, that is what is going on. It's the alignment, and that is what's happening in the world today. I had to make this video to let you guys know that the electric universe is causing effects on the sun today, which are probably responsible for all the catastrophes and disasters we're seeing at the moment today in 2020. The Bible speaks about it. It talks about signs in the stars, and then it talks about changing kings, famines, pestilences, locusts, all sorts of things like that. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave a comment below.